let's get started with another talk, the fast talk from Tanay, and his presentation about web-based virtual reality. Let's get started.
Greetings everyone, my name is Tanay Pant and today I'll be speaking on web-based virtual reality. I'm really excited to be amongst you all. So before we start, I'd like to map the temperature of the room a bit. So have any one of you have any experience with virtual reality? That's a good proportion. And any one of you have some experience with web-based virtual reality? Okay, one. In this presentation, we'll discuss VR, WebVR, A-Frame, faster WebVR prototyping with A-Frame, and finally, the variety of cool stuff that can be accomplished using A-Frame. Virtual reality is a technology platform that transports you to realistic, interactive, and immersive 3D environments. It's the next platform that will change how the way we work, play, and communicate digitally. Yeah, that's me. I'm a tech speaker from Mozilla Foundation, and I work as the engineering communications manager at ResearchGate in Berlin. I'm an author, and I have written books on Firefox OS, Python-based virtual assistants, and web-based virtual reality. I'm also an Intel software innovator in the field of IoT. So yeah, it's 5:20, and everybody, despite of the coffee, must be feeling very sleepy. So yeah, let's do this in quick 1 minute. I'd request all of you to stand up on their seats. It'll only take a moment. Let's pump up the energy. Okay, so we are gonna do what we call the open web stretch, and it goes like this. First of all, we reach for all the open source streams. Then we go down to our toes and reach the grassroots. Or the table, it's fine. Then we blow the winds of change. Then we lean forward and shake the money tree for fundraising. Give it a good shake. Then we lean left to avoid the NSA. We lean right to avoid the KGB. Then we go all around to avoid the NSA and KGB. Yeah, that's done. Thank you very much. Please have your seats. I still remember my first experience with VR, and it was in the form of an Android application which gave the simulation of a roller coaster. Have anyone of you played with that? Ah, okay. And that application blew away my mind, and that is how I got started with virtual reality and web-based virtual reality. Other than game development, there are other use cases of VR as well. If you are an engineering student, you can make use of VR by interacting with 3D models that you create in CAD. If you are an artist, you can use Google Tilt Brush or A-Painter for painting in 3D. Recently, Samsung did an experiment in which they invited people who had acrophobia, which is the fear of heights, and they gave them a simulation in which they were standing on the edge of a high-rise building. And it helped them to get rid of their fear in a safe and controlled environment. So this shows how VR also helps in the development of our society. VR is being backed by some of the largest corporations in the world. Google, Samsung, Facebook, Microsoft, HTC, everybody wants in. And there are different kinds of devices. These devices range from tethered to untethered, cheap to expensive, and some of them have sensors as well. And HTC Vive with Steam currently provides the most compelling experiences of them all. And we see a lot of devices, platforms competing against each other. Now, can you guys recognize the devices on the screen if we start from the top left? That is Google Cardboard, second one. Google Daydream, yep, third one. Samsung Gear VR. Oculus Rift, Sony Nintendo, HTC Vive. Can anyone recognize the device in this slide? I'm just kidding, the guy's wearing his headphones wrong. The current VR ecosystems have some very compelling problems, and these problems are gatekeepers. App stores and corporations control the distribution of the content. They can autonomously take down and block content. Then there's the issue of downloads and installs because they are a barrier to consumption, even for creation of small business pages, you have to download the whole SDKs. And this creates problems in countries where data connectivity is an issue. And also the rate of data is pretty much high. It's expensive in some countries. And then finally, they have a closed ecosystem. There are proprietary engines and steep learning curves. You have to learn to use the proprietary engines in order to create an application for a specific platform. And if we want VR to be successful, we want a platform without these points of friction. And the answer to our problems is WebVR. WebVR is an open virtual reality platform with the advantages of the web. WebVR is open. Anyone can publish content online, just like publishing a website. And it follows open source standards with open source culture. WebVR scenes are connected. If you create a WebVR scene, you can insert a hyperlink in it or a portal. And when you interact with that scene, you can teleport yourself to a different WebVR scene. So you can be like Doctor Strange with WebVR. And WebVR experiences are instant. You can just create a WebVR scene and share the URL with your friends via Twitter or Facebook. And they do not have to make any downloads or installs. The experiences are instant. The web that we see today is actually a subset of the web and what it can be constructed like with the powers of WebVR. Web has the advantages that make it the best platform for the people. WebVR API, it's the API that provides optimized rendering path to headsets. They also provide position data and rotation data. The initial WebVR API was provided by Mozilla, and now it has been adopted by the working W3C community group. So it's not just a specification anymore, it has been implemented. And as we can see, it has been backed by some of the largest browsers of the world. Before delving a bit deeper into this topic, I want to share a term which is quite commonly used in the VR and WebVR communities. Metaverses are shared, persistent, and collective virtual spaces. They are alternate digital realities, and they are like the world where we live, work, or play in. It's kind of like the Matrix in the movie Matrix. And the essential thing about metaverses is that they must be decentralized, open, and connected. Hence, web is the best platform to fully realize the potential of metaverses. Okay, where do we begin? 3JS is a good solution. Have anybody of you used 3JS? 1, 2, 3 people. So, as you can imagine, 3JS abstracts WebGL, 3D, and WebVR. But it is not a very accessible thing. And it has a slightly steeper learning curve. And before we see anything about WebVR, I'd like to share a demo with you. So if all of you can take out your mobiles or laptops and open this URL to see how WebVR examples look like. It's drawvr.com. Okay, so if you're on a mobile device, you can move around. You can see different things by moving your mobile around. You can point to some place and tap on it to actually walk there. If you're on a laptop, you can change your field of vision with the help of cursors and move around with WASD keypad. And as you can see, I just interacted with a hyperlink and it teleported me to a different WebVR scene. It has 3D objects. You can walk around, move around, see different places. And as you might observe, on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, there's a which is a goggles icon. And if you are on a mobile device and have a WebVR compatible browser, tapping on it will split your field of vision into two. After which you can put your mobile device into either Google Daydream or Google Cardboard and can get immersed into the virtual reality. And that's the sad truth of life. It's pretty hard to create WebVR experiences, especially if you're new to web development. For developing WebVR, there are huge obstacles for even doing small prototypes and experiments. Like boilerplate needs updating with new versions of WebVR, 3JS, and you have to take care of all these browser quirks. A Hello World program is actually the first program that people try when they are learning a new technology or a language. So how many of you would like to create a Hello World like this? Expected? What if I tell you that you can encapsulate all of that into one line? And hence introducing A-Frame. It's a declarative framework for building virtual reality experiences on the web. It was launched last December. Why A-Frame? Because it's easier for web developers to create VR content without graphics knowledge, and it makes prototyping and experimenting WebVR and VR UX much faster. It's the perfect vehicle to kick off the WebVR ecosystem. And this is what a WebVR Hello World program looks like when it's written with A-Frame. As you can see, it's just HTML. Just one script tag, and you can include the A-Frame JS. There are no build steps required. And one single line of HTML, which is the A-Scene tags, handles components like camera, canvas, renderer, lights, controls, WebVR polyfill, VR effect. And for further development, we put our stuff inside our scene. This is an example of a Hello World program which has different primitives, different 3D primitives, such as box, cylinder, sphere, plane, sky. As you can see, A-Frame is highly readable because HTML is arguably the most accessible language in computing. You can copy-paste HTML from one place to another, and it would still work because there is no state or variables involved. Now, let us quickly take another look at an example which shows how it would look like if A-Frame is someday integrated with Wikipedia. And as you can see, it would enable us to have a look at different objects, 3D objects, buildings, different cities in 3D environment. And this elaborates on the previous slide where a user has entered the VR space and is entered the A-Frame environment and is viewing Burj Khalifa. Since A-Frame is based on HTML, it is compatible with all of the existing libraries and frameworks. Here, HTML acts as an intermediary layer between WebGL and 3JS. And under the hood, A-Frame is an extensible and declarative framework for 3JS. So you can do different things using A-Frame, like bringing your scientific or data visualizations to 3D with D3JS, Vue.js, React, Redux, jQuery, and Angular. Another example that I'd like you to show is this URL, if you guys can open this on your laptops or mobile phones. So here's a demo which shows A-Frame integrated with Firebase to create new sessions as new users join the website. For recording this demo, what I did was I opened up a session with my mobile and I'm recording it with my laptop. As you can see, this is a simulation of a conference room. There's the speaker, the audience, and this is the session that I've opened using my mobile. Tapping on the screen makes it wave its hands like crazy. And if I put the mobile look down, it would look down. If I take it up, it will look up. A-Frame is an entity component system. So have anybody of you used Unity 3D? Oh, that's quite a lot of people, good. Entity component system is popular in game development, especially with softwares like Unity 3D. And all the objects in the scenes of WebVR are inherently empty objects. And we plug in components to attach appearance, behavior, and functionality to these entities. The 2D web was one where every element was fixed, but the 3D web is one with different kinds of objects with infinite types and complexities. Hence, the entity component framework provides an easy way to build up different kinds of objects. For composing an entity, we start with the A-entity tag. By itself, it has no appearance, behavior, or functionality. And we plug in components to give these behavior, functionality, and appearance to these entities. Here I put in geometry and material for the object. As you can see, I have included the primitive sphere, and in A-Frame there's two ways of presenting things. For primitive objects like boxes, spheres, cylinders, you can just use a cylinder, a box tags. However, for more complex objects with more complex properties, you can use entity component system. You would see that the syntax is pretty similar to the CSS styles. The component names are HTML attributes, and the component properties and values are HTML attributes value. Here I've added position, rotation, and scaling to the data. And as you can see, positioning and rotation are provided in the XYZ coordinates. And you can add different behaviors like animation, movement pattern for the entities. You can also write your own components using A-frame. And for doing that, you have to define a schema. A schema defines how data is passed from HTML. There are different lifecycle methods like init, update, remove, and tick, which you might find similar to somewhat Android applications lifecycle if you have done some Android application development. There are some of the components that ship with A-frame. By the way, if you're planning to build something like the Charles Bridge using A-frame with boxes and cylinders, you can put your mind to ease, because there are two components, as you can see in the bottom of the image, which are object model and collada model. The collada model primitive displays a 3D collada model which can be created using any 3D modeling software or can be downloaded from the web. The object model component loads a 3D model and material using a .obj and .mtl file. So you can download free 3D models from the internet and simply include them in your WebVR scenes. Coming back to the topic, since A-frame is fully extensible at its core, community has filled the ecosystem with tons of components. And these components can do whatever they want because they have full access to 3JS and web APIs. And the component ecosystem is the lifeblood of A-frame. You can simply drop in these components as script tag and they will work straight from the HTML. And this is an example of advanced developers helping new developers and working on collecting these components. And these components are collected and are available in the A-frame registry. It's like a store of components that developers make sure work well. And people can browse and search for components for including them in their WebVR scenes. And of course, this is one of the most amazing features of A-frame. If you are working on building a complicated scene, it's not very feasible to be entering the position of the different objects in XYZ components because you'll have to do a lot of trial and error. So A-frame introduced A-frame inspector, which can be invoked by pressing Ctrl, Alt, and I on any A-frame scene. This is the example of Anime UI WebVR scene at aframe.io. And as you can see, you can manipulate different objects that are present in the scene, move them around, change their scaling, position, rotation, change the color of objects, change the lighting brightness, include new objects into the scene. And you can also download some of the components that are present in the A registry directly from A-frame inspector. Some of them which are pretty cool are the mountain component and the animated pool component. Along with VR, AR is also possible using A-frame. Here is a demo that utilizes the camera of a mobile and A-frame to create an AR demo. And you can do that using different libraries. The most common one is ARJS along with A-frame. How many of you are aware of Google Tilt Brush? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'll give you a brief background on Google Tilt Brush. So Google made a collaboration with HTC Vive where there's a room scale environment and you have the Vive controllers in your hand. And you can use them for painting in 3D, just like in the video shown above. And A-frame is very powerful. To demonstrate that, the MozVR team created a 90+ frame per second tilt brush experience in just a few weeks using just A-frame. In a nutshell, VR is fun, and A-frame makes developing WebVR content fun. A-frame is an open source and inclusive project. Most of the work is done on GitHub. There's an active community on Slack to share projects, interact, hang out, or seek help. There are featured projects on the awesome A-frame repository and a Week of A-frame blog. So do not forget to visit the website at aframe.io and have a look at the documentation. So that's all for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tanay. Questions are not answered because there is no time for that. If you want to answer this question, Tanay will wait in the speaker's corner. Thank you.